Suing a Chinese company. Since mainland Chinese courts do not enforce U.S. judgments, it is usually a waste of time and money to bring a lawsuit in a U.S. court against a Chinese company that does not have assets in either the United States or in a country that enforces U.S. judgments. Arbitration versus litigation. If there's a contractual agreement to arbitrate, you must arbitrate. If there's no arbitration agreement, your dispute must be resolved in a court somewhere. Jurisdiction. Since a Chinese company in the suing a Chinese company in the United States requires the typical court inquiry that comes with suing any foreign company. An American company usually can sue a Chinese company in mainland China. The PRC Civil Procedure Law grants Chinese court jurisdiction over international cases involving foreign plaintiffs against Chinese companies. There are three levels of courts in China. The primary court, the intermediate court, and the Supreme Court adopt the same trial procedures and appellate procedure. The intermediate court may apply to the procedures stricter than in practice. First, there's a motion for attachment prior to case filing. Prior to filing the lawsuit, the plaintiff may file a motion for attachment to the court, where the defendant's target asset is located. The court may decide to grant such motion at its own discretion within 48 hours after receiving the motion. The plaintiff shall provide various kinds of guarantee enough to cover the full market value of the target asset, such as cash deposit, pledge warranty by bonding company, or warranty by plaintiff's affiliated company. Bonding companies usually charge a fee for such attachment, mainly based on the total amount of the guarantee. The court will charge an additional filing fee on the motion for attachment, and generally it takes around 7 days to complete the attachment process prior to filing. Case filing after motion for attachment. The case filing usually will take the following steps. First, the plaintiff shall file the complaint with the court clerk. The clerk will examine the document on site and decide whether the filing and the complaint meet the requirement. When the complaint passes the on-site examination, the clerk will issue an official receipt with court sealed. And once filing is accepted, the court will issue a notice to pay the case filing fee to the plaintiffs. The plaintiffs shall complete the payment and submit the payment receipt to the court within 7 days from the billing notice day. When the plaintiff receives an invoice from the court, it is deemed the court has accepted the filing. The court shall decide the case within 6 months from the last day of acceptance, and the plaintiff shall advance the filing fee based on the claims as a progressive rate range from 0.5% to 2.5%, depending on the amount in controversy. Preparing for hearing. The court shall serve the defendant within 5 days after accepts the case filing. If the court is unable to reach the defendant by ordinary service for 3 months, the court will serve the defendant by publication, and the defendant shall submit an answer within 15 days after being served. The defendant may also challenge the jurisdiction of the court in the same period. Just like he has no jurisdiction over the defendant, the court shall deliver the defendant's answer to the plaintiff within 5 days after receiving it. In some cases, the discovery period may be agreed by both parties and approved by the court, and generally it will take 1 to 3 months before the court argument. If the parties are served in ordinary methods and jurisdiction is not challenged. Trial proceedings. Generally, the court will have 1 to 3 court arguments. After a trial court renders the judgment, the parties have 15 days to appeal after receiving it. Otherwise, the judgment will take effect and the court will certify the effect. Generally, it takes around 6 months to complete a trial. Appellate proceeding. The parties to the trial are entitled to appeal within 15 days after receiving the trial judgment. In this period, the appellate shall also pay the appellate fee. The court will serve the appellate within 5 days after receiving the appellate brief. The appellate shall submit its brief within 15 days after being served. The appellate shall be served on the appellate within 5 days after receiving the brief. The appellate court will accept the approval within 5 days after the trial court has submitted its court record to the appellate court. The appellate court will inform both parties the time on court argument. Generally, it takes around 30 days for the appellate court to accept the filing of an appeal. Appellate argument. Generally, the court will hold 1 to 2 court arguments before entering judgment. The appellate judgment will come into effect once it is served. The appellate court shall decide cases within 3 months after the acceptance of the case. This is interesting. Enforcement of judgment. Motion to enforce may be filed with the Enforcement Division of the Court of the Primary Court, where the target asset is located, when monetary judgment is not fully satisfied. Such motion shall be made within 2 years after the due day for the defendant to satisfy the judgment. The court will make a decision on the filing within 15 to 30 days after receiving the motion. The petitioner may not need to pay for the enforcement fee. The court will charge the respondent instead. The court will ask the petitioner to provide the information of the respondent's target asset. The court will also demand the defendant to report its asset. Generally, the court will enforce the judgment within 6 months of acceptance against the defendant and the assets seized